real cost is, what the real motivation is for when things like import duty waivers are being given out and to foreign companies and what have you. A number of other issues on the table we'll be talking about with him. Keep your comments coming in on 0244 340 437. That's the WhatsApp number. The Twitter handle is at Joy997FM. And on Facebook, we are Joy99.7FM. The hashtag is JoySMS. Now, text messages are brought to you by Afrodan. Your back must last you a lifetime, and Glyco Travel Insurance Policy, we cushion you for life. Data doesn't deserve to have expiry dates like food and drinks, which can get spoiled. So, say goodbye to all data bundles that expire and use the new Airtel Tigo Big Time Data Bundles, which have no expiry. And no expiry means you get more time to use your data how you like, when you like. Simply buy any Airtel Tigo scratch card, dial *126*, the scratch card pin hash. Enjoy more data than anywhere else on the network that gives you the most. Airtel Tigo. Now, with over 30 years in the stationery business, Kingdom Books and Stationery now offers a 30-day credits facility with no interest charge. We deliver free within Accra, Tema, and surrounding towns. So you can visit us in any of our branches across the country, or you can call us on 0302 764 101 or 762 307, or visit kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, your number one stop shop for all office essentials, stationery, and furniture. Back to my guest in studio now, Prof. Stephen Adei. We are talking about political leadership as we've started already. Vigilantism is going to feature, corruption, the role of academia from where Prof. Adei originally comes, and their role in academia and national developments, democracy, and a number of other issues. But here we are. Congratulations, Prof. Yes, on being made chairman of the National Development Planning Commission.
Well, I told a friend, he said, congratulations. I said, also add Yako, going to get lead in the planning and thinking for the national development is one of the probably biggest challenges that anyone can be saddled with. So it is not so much of congratulations, but as to, we pray for you.
Yes. Someone I respect a lot once said, the reward for hard work is more work. Yes, so this is a lot of work. But
well, my father-in-law used to say that there's no rest for the wicked. So I don't know whether it's hard work or wicked.
Not wicked. We'll come to the work that you're going to do in a few minutes. But let's begin with this. This statement is often attributed to you. Leadership is cause, everything else is effect. In that context, what do you have to say about political leadership, particularly in the wake of this Ayawaso West Wogon by-election violence?
Well, yes, I stand by my statement that leadership is cause, everything else is effect. And in that regard, political leadership is a mega cause and mega causes a lot of effect. I think it's a shame. It's a shame that over and over again we have these things happening. And mind you, Legon area, the Wogon area, is actually the most elite constituency probably in the whole of the country. It covers the University of Ghana, East Legon, Airport Residential Area, West Legon. What else? And for this thing to happen should be it's a big blot on our country and something which should be totally condemned by everybody. And on the more positive side, we should work towards how we will prevent it, because if this is happening in our most elite circumstance, what will happen in the less, which I wouldn't mention, areas which are easily flared up? And I think that the tendency of immediately making it a political issue then makes it almost difficult for other people to talk about it. This is a national disaster, and I think that it should be. And I'm wondering, and here I haven't seen the full report, and I'm not in the security area. I'm wondering whether this was a vigilantism or some security operation that went wrong.
You see, that is where
Yes.
that's where the question is. And of course, if this happened anywhere in the country, it
Yes.
will be a problem. And again, this is the first time that we are seeing masked men doing
Yes.
something like this.
And I
Some
hear
of
that they
these-
were in a police vehicle.
Yes, they went in a police
Yes.
SWAT
Yeah,
vehicle.
I mean,
they were
yes.
in NSC marked shirts.
Shirts.
The National Security Minister has said that this was a sanctioned operation. Now,
Yeah.
the question here is that, Prof. Adei, some of these persons have been seen, photographs of some of these persons have been seen without their masks, and they are party activists. They are party members. There are some political MPP executives who have come out to say yes, some of these were their boys. So if you look at the nature of these issues, Prof. Adei, it looks like it's quite political, isn't it?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that it goes beyond the political. This is a very serious. I mean, if you add the fact that people can go with guns and shoot, in that, what I'm saying is that it has a political dimension, but for me, it has a serious criminal dimension also that must be looked at. And really, unless this is confronted and, as the president has said, are brought to book, nobody is safe.
This is the case where we have seen repeated calls by the president. This sort of statements that, the people should be brought to book. We have seen it. We have heard it's being said repeatedly. In the case of the Delta Force, yes, we saw what people are calling it a slap on the wrist. But if you remove that, almost every case or issue of vigilantism that came, we haven't seen it come to a conclusion. So is it a lack of commitment from government or the police?
There's no doubt at all when there is somehow a political coloring or sponsorship, you don't expect things by naturally to be pursued aggressively. And I think that this is where civil society, the media, must keep on hammering, because nowhere in the world has freedom been given or justice been given on a platter. And I believe that this is a case whereby it's not you in the media should not be handling it for a week and then the next story comes, which you tend to do, and then jump on. It's almost like what is being done about the murder of this Anas boy.
Ahmed Hussein
Yes,
Swallow.
being said that every Wednesday, that Wednesday or Tuesday, there's going to be a black day, and hammer on and hammer on and hammer on. And I think that this is one of the cases, because we shouldn't allow this to die.
Yes. But in the spirit of not allowing it to die, with your position in your office as NDPC chairman, respected across the country, if you were to speak to the president now about this issue, what would you tell him?
Let justice take its full course. The unfortunate thing is that the courts they work in they cannot take any action unless the police and the BNI and others bring it, because any action by the courts by themselves will be compromising the cause of justice. But I think that all that I would tell the president, this is a case, if you sweep it on the carpet, it will not inure well for Ghana and must be tackled with all the seriousness, putting for once Ghana first.
Yes, but on the bigger subject of vigilantism, when parties are in opposition, you find that even though presidential candidates are assigned state security, presidential candidates more often than not have their own private security, and that's where it begins.
Yes.
So you see that, okay, these are members of this group, and it turns into a paramilitary organization. This time we are seeing it even being weaved into state security apparatus. What are your thoughts on that?
It's quite interesting. I was just reflecting before I came to the studio.
Yeah.
Why is it that as soon as any of them, whether NPP or NDC, they are in opposition, then they see the police, the security agents as bias. And this shows what they do when they are in government. And I think that our Constitution did the same. You know, the Constitution was promulgated at a time when almost like looking at the man in power who was just transiting from military and therefore give him as much power as possible.
Okay.
And I think that the idea that any government comes and there's a change of the head of the securities, you know, everybody is resigns and other things, has undermined the credibility of the security apparatus. And it's something that everyone must be concerned with.
Right. Would you say that this particular incident stands out from the other incidents of vigilantism?
I mean, much so. I mean, so long as the boys every now and then will misbehave, whether it's NDC boys or Soka, whatever their names are. But this is unique. First of all, they were in official police vehicle. And then, in addition, they go on with the hood like, you know, armed robbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it is happening at the heart of Accra in the most elite environment. It's something which is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And I don't think we have ever had the like of it, except in the bad days of Nkrumah towards the end, whereby, you know, virtually you were not safe even talking to your child at home.
Now, some have said that our democracy is not as strong as we think if things like this can happen. Would you agree?
I think that we must give credit to how far we have come as a democratic. And the fact that we are even talking about this, there were days whereby we call them, those of us who are older, boom days. You are boomed and nothing happens. I think that we have come a long way. But I also agree that there are very weak lines in our democracy, which if we do not take good care of it, it can undermine the achievements made so far.
So where do we begin to find the real solution? Because in this conversation of vigilantism and how far it has gone, a lot of it comes down to the will of the politician, which, you know, there's no motivation beyond advocacy. There's no real motivation for the politician to disband any of these groups. We've seen the NDC say they'll march boots for boots. We've seen the NPP defend their boys. Where does the solution begin?
I think that it's high time that the leadership of the politician, of the parties, and here I'm talking about on the other side, Mahama, Siedu Nketia, Fosu Ampofu, the president himself, Bodi and the rest, they themselves must be held personally accountable for this. And you know, the politician is such that only two things matter to them. In fact, there should have been a third thing which I'll come to, but only two in our part of the world. Unless they know that they are personally being held accountable and to be negative for them, they will not act. And the second is that they will act when they think something else is going to be positive for their political fortunes. So far, they see these boys and other things as in their favor, political fortune. I think that we should hammer on the other one, that those who do these things are bad for Ghana. And there must be a direct, targeted crusade. And in that say, as soon as a politician knows that the way things are going to go against me, then they change. I said that this, yeah.
Go ahead, please.
The third one, of course, they should have been more interested in Ghana's development. But yes, oftentimes it comes way third.
Interesting. So you think that we should hold the president personally responsible for this?
The political leaders, because it's happening on both sides.
Yes,
and
of course.
We must attach, if you go and inside this and allow this to go, a president, you allow it and the people are not punished, we must then use it as personally, you have let Ghana down. When politicians are now being held accountable for that, then they will know that it will be at a political cost to them.
Our guest this morning is Prof. Stephen Adei. He is the chairman of the National Development Planning Commission. We are talking about Ghana. We've talked a bit about corruption. We've talked about vigilantism, the Ayawaso West Wogon violence. We'll take the Joy Business Minute followed by a few messages. When we come back, we'll talk about that third thing that we should be focusing on, which is development of this country and where this country really should be going, your current role in the NDPC, and a number of other issues of national importance. This is still the Super Morning Show. I am Daniel Daze. Stay with us.
Welcome to the Joy Business Minute. My name is Darryl. MD of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, Eric Otu, says they are working to have a controlling stake in the 5 local banks that will be recapitalized from next month. The trust is expected to begin its fundraising exercise next week. 2019 recruits of the Nation Builders Corps may be visiting your homes and offices to collect rent tax. The collection of this tax has been almost impossible over the years. Owners or tenants of high-rise buildings will soon be required to take compulsory insurance against unforeseen emergencies. This is because the National Insurance Commission will soon lay before Parliament a bill that will demand that such persons take insurance different from building insurance. Elsewhere, a UN trade official has warned a US plan to raise tariffs on Chinese goods next month would have massive implications. The US plans to increase tariffs on Chinese goods if the two sides fail to make progress on a trade deal by the 1st of March. More news on joybusinessnews.com.
Airtel Tigo spoiled them big time. Sir. Some new big time bundles view.
The only bundles I want hear about are bundles of cash.
So what about a bundle that gives you the most data on your 1, 2, and 5 Ghana Cedi bundles than anywhere else, and also gives you a whole 1.5 gig for only 10 Ghana Cedi?
Please, no network will give you that much data at that price.
Sir, well, Airtel Tigo does, and you even get a big 2 gig for the same 10 Ghana Cedis when you bundle directly from an Airtel Tigo scratch card or with Airtel Tigo Money. Airtel Tigo's new big time bundles do not expire. You can browse, sir. No more daily, weekly, or monthly bundles.
Hey, bad. How do I subscribe?
Dial *111#, select big time bundles and browse, sir. Whether you're a new subscriber or an old subscriber, T's and C's apply. Get big time data from the network that gives you the most. Airtel Tigo.
It's the year of the car owner with Enterprise Insurance. Just dial *714*556#. Choose update your details, follow the prompts, and voila! You are in for surprises that will make your head swell big! Surprises like mobile data, useful car insurance tips, and many more. Remember, updating your details even helps to speed up the claims process. Car owner, this is your year. Insure with Enterprise. Dial *714*556# and update your details now.
Enterprise, your advantage.
If you buy gold, you will save money. Because gold lasts longer. If you paint your house gold, it will shine brighter. Because gold withstands all the elements. And gold protects you from microbial growth. And it's washable. And contrary to common belief, gold comes in every color your heart desires. So, invest in gold premium acrylic paints the next time you want to paint your house. Highly washable, long-lasting, with a wide range of products from acrylic paints to enamels, primers, stuccos, and more. All engineered to the highest international standards. Protect your home. Invest in gold.
Luciano le melko, no fiano ye melko. What are you looking for? Melcom got it all. Great discount, dodo. Yamafia so. Best bargains on our days. Everything here is a bargain. High quality, goods be a priority. So tell your mom, tell Poppy, tell your actually everybody.
My dear, getting a new asset will make me feel on top of the world. Look, I'm thinking of getting a new car, a house, an acre of land, and a new trap for the business.
No doubt, my darling. But why not first check to ensure the security of these assets before you buy?
You are right. With some people using their assets to take loans from different banks, while others sell properties which do not belong to them to innocent buyers, you and I have no choice but to quickly fall on the collateral registry to know the true status of any property we want to buy or accept as collateral for loan.
You better act now.
Don't lose guard. The collateral registry of the Bank of Ghana is the one-stop place for banks and individuals to check the true state of an asset. Contact the Bank of Ghana's collateral registry at the City House 11th floor or call 0243 543 931.
Collateral Registry, securing your transaction.
This message was brought to you by the World Bank Group and IFC in partnership with the Bank of Ghana and with support from the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO. Hi Kojo, Chala, where are you coming from?
Brother, I went to the bank for another loan to clear my goods from the port, and it didn't go through. They said I've not finished paying my first loan, but that is not true. I finished paying that loan long ago, but
what, brother? You see, whether you pay your loan regularly or not, your credit report will show, and a bank can deny or grant you a loan request based on your credit report. Yes. That is why every borrower needs to check his or her credit report at least once a year to ensure their loan records are accurate. Don't lose guard. Check your loan report from a credit reference bureau today. A good credit report ensures better access to cash tomorrow. This message was brought to you by the World Bank Group and IFC in partnership with the Bank of Ghana and support from the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO.
Morning Show.
Asampaetia Obanyansa fuso obunuye wonka na asam Tema futu sam kakre wa asopeme Yo kofi oman ya woman Omani ya memana Yenyi baby ako Wacha za ya wareni Wonsom wanyinyi pa Asade pa wofyo ye Yamo yembera ye
It's our nation, it's our Ghana, and there isn't a better time than now to do something for it. Uncle Atus Wonsom always encourages me when I listen to it. And we are talking about Ghana this morning. Prof. Stephen Adei, head of the National Development Planning Commission, is our guest. We've already been talking a bit about corruption. We've talked a bit about the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election. Prof. Adei has said that the leaders of the political parties must be held personally responsible for the violence that we saw at Ayawaso West and all forms of vigilantism. And if we don't begin to do that within our advocacy, they will not feel the personal pressure to act about it decisively. We are going to talk a bit more about education, which is where Prof. Stephen Adei is from. We'll talk about development and a number of other issues. But before I do that, let me say a happy birthday to a special person. And I'll read the message as it came. It says, on this day, I celebrate a woman of excellence, dignity, and spirituality. We thank you for your selflessness, love, and commitment shown to the family. I love you, my treasure. Happy golden celebration. So it's a golden anniversary celebration from Reverend Samuel Ewukujechi to Mrs. Margaret Ewukujechi of the Council of Law Reporting. Happy birthday once again to you, Sam Boabasa, Deputy Director at the National Health Insurance Authority. Now, if you're a real Super Football fan, this is your chance to see your favorite teams go head-to-head live in their home stadia in the UK. Simply open a Barclays Ultimate account, maintain a balance of at least 500 Ghana cedis, and swipe to make payments with your Barclays card as often as you can to win an all-expenses-paid trip to the UK to watch your favorite teams go head-to-head live. You could also win a stadium experience in a local superfan penthouse and take away exciting home items and your favorite team souvenirs. Visit our Facebook and Twitter for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Barclays is part of the ABSA family. Now, of course, Kids Olympics begins this Saturday, the 9th of February 2019. We are starting with athletics. If you still haven't picked up your registration form, just go, come to the front desk of Joy FM, go on myjoyonline.com to download the form, or you can call 02444 71402 or 0249 862 903. Now, Kids Olympics is sponsored by School Box Plus, your school supply superstore. It's 10 minutes past 9. I'm back to my guest in studio, Professor Steve Adei. So before we go on and talk about other issues, this just came up, and recently you incurred the wrath of teachers. In fact, I remember you came here on this show with my big brother Kojo Yankson.
Yes.
And you had a conversation with him about how all teachers should be sacked and made to reapply.
Yeah.
I remember that statement so well. I covered it in my news bulletin afterwards.
I mean, I'm talking about the basic school teachers.
Yes, the basic school. Thank you. The basic school teachers, and you even called them pure criminals at a point. Do you stand by those comments?
I do, because anyway, since we are talking about teachers, when you go to any of the dictionaries, whether Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge and other things, there are always two definitions of crime. What is criminal? One has to do, of course, what the IGP and then going against the law of Ghana. But the second one describes what is criminal as an evil act, sinful, outrageous, corrupt, vice, wicked, depraved, generally bad, and unacceptable behavior. And I think that something is fundamentally wrong when about 2/3 of public basic school students come out functionally illiterate. The worst part of it is that of late, people who cannot read and write even get BECE 1111. I have it in my village, where people have passed BECE, and yet when we have a school there, secondary school, entrance examination, you write TWO, if you don't write 2 but TWO, PLUS, TWO, 2 plus 2, they cannot decipher it. And these children have been in a classroom for 9 years. And they are normal children, not, excuse me to say, mentally challenged or other things. And I always use my village as an example, because if anyone is well placed, my village, though small, is by the roadside, Kumasi Cape Coast Road.
Okay.
The other day I counted, they have 12 trained teachers in the primary school, one of whom had a master's degree on the national. Then the senior secondary school, and yet that is the output. And you say this is not a total depravity, generally bad, unacceptable. And when you say that, then you have Kabonu saying that you are Senai and other things and insult you, and then having the audacity to say that they require an apology. Who should apologize for the destroyer of about 2/3 of the future generation? By teachers who are trained, relatively paid well. They are paid, when you go outside Accra, they are paid about 4 times that of the private school teachers, who most of them, of course, have never even gotten a good secondary school. We are faced with a national crisis. And let me tell you, unless we confront this head on, no matter how much we invest in secondary school, we will not get the type of human resources we need for our country. And it runs through to the university. In fact, now you scarcely, if you go get them, many of university students to even speak a good English. And yet a child within first 2 years can be taught to be functionally literate. This is what I will want the NAGRATs and the NATs to be confronting. And let me tell you, it's not a resource issue. It doesn't mean that they don't need more resources, more classrooms, more books. Let me tell you that with just what they call it, the cardboards, the one you can make some cards. Because the English language, for example, has only 1,500 words, which would constitute about 85% of what we normally use, ordinary, if you are not doing a technical job. A child who is normal, and I don't think that Ghanaian children are not normal, will learn it in 6 months. You go to a place like Togo in French, in 1 year they are literate. And we sit here and then, unfortunately, even politically, you say, the teachers are the hallmark, they must be taken care of. Yes, I am a teacher's teacher. I started from teaching in the basic school, Set A. And now Set A was not post-secondary Set A. It was after SAR 7, you go for 4 years. I've taught to now supervising PhDs. I know what education is. I don't think that unless we confront the quality of teaching and responsibility, which will depend upon supervision and accountability at that level, I deliberately become hyperbolic with this, so that people would see the crisis. The average person in Ghana is not realizing that we are having a national crisis whereby children in public school, which account for 80% of our children, are being shortchanged. And for that matter, the Ghanaian. It will affect productivity. It will affect their own future. It's part and parcel of the criminality. The reason why the vigilantism, whereby the other people take their children to Achimota, Ghana Christian, and everywhere else, and then use other people's children to go and beat up and get killed, is because these people have not been trained.
So you believe that even at the heart of the vigilantism problem
is part of it.
Is poor education.
Yes.
Are we not belittling the resource question? Because, Prof, every day we bring up stories of children sitting in rooms which are not rooms, studying under sheds, learning about computers by drawing them on the board.
Having a stone as a mouse.
Thank you.
Yes. No, I do not say that they are not important. But in basic school, the teacher is the key. All other things are secondary. Listen, so far as I recall, I was not taught by a trained teacher in my first 6 years. Oftentimes, we were 3 classes. So, in fact, you won't believe it. P4, P5, P6 shared one shed. But, the teachers who were people teachers, they were committed. They cared for the children and they taught us. And we made it. So I'm not saying that in this day and age, children should be sitting on the trees and writing with the belly on the floor. But I'm talking about Shiramuasi Methodist Primary School and Junior School. We have the type of facility which is comparable to anywhere in the world, or in Ghana at least. And we have 12 trained teachers in the primary school and about 6 in the high school, and the result is the same virtually like those who are having their bellies on the floor. Can that be? So the difference is not resources. Those children must be helped. They must get a place to sit. The dignity of their childhood must be respected. And we must use our resources to identify. But I tell you, it has to do with supervision, accountability. Now, the wickedness of it is this. I heard something, and I go down there, so I hear. The Minister of Education is saying, Ghana Education Service, that absenteeism is going to be punished. Do you know what some teachers said? We are going to have presenteeism. That means we will be present, but we won't teach. How can you say such a wicked thing and then want to be pampered? He said, now, if that's what they want, we will have presenteeism. And that is why I believe that at the end of the day, apart from reducing the number of subjects so that they can get competencies in certain core areas early, we need to give authority to the head teachers to be able to discipline and even sack the teachers. The reason why the private schools do well is that of accountability. If you don't teach, you are out. And yet, I met a father in Obuasi who was almost weeping, says that a teacher in a Catholic school, because the Catholic schools now are still government, who was not doing his job, and say, why are you doing so? He had the audacity to say that, Father, I won't teach. I will continue to do what I'm doing. You can write to the Ghana Education Service. Nothing will happen to me. That is where the trouble is. And you can say this to a father in his cassock. Not quite there.
Now, the challenge that you have just spelled out, and if you just tuned in, it's 21 minutes past 9. This is the Super Morning Show. I'm Daniel Dazi. My guest is Prof. Stephen Adei. Prof. Adei is chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, but he's an educationist.
But I'm not speaking for the National Development Planning.
No,
that's my passion.
No. Yes. And I was just about to say that you are an educationist. If you heard Prof. Adei speak earlier, he's been teaching all his career and teaching and administrating, playing administration role in school for most of his career. But some would say that this challenge you talk about with teachers, poor supervision and accountability, and to an extent motivation. To an extent motivation. It's a public sector issue. And that is where the development problem of Ghana begins. So that for any public sector office, you go to an office where you expect productivity, you expect a service to be rendered, these challenges can be named.
Yes, but I think that the teachers' one is unique. First of all, unlike the bigger public service, the schools are divided into smaller units. So you go to a school, you have the head teacher, a maximum of 12 teachers or less if it's a junior secondary school. So the units are easier to deal with. And secondly, whilst everywhere else the impact can be very negative. We are talking about having vehicles sitting down there and with the taxpayers' money. Here you are destroying the very human beings of the future. And eventually it will escalate into all the other, worsening the other public services, the whole national. So especially children's education, I will not put it within the general public service. Something, if we want to unravel things, that's where we should start.
Is that something that you're looking at the commission? Let me come to your position as chairman.
Well, the commission definitely would, a part of its job is to look at the human resources, but it's broader. Basically, I see that the commission, from the constitution and everything else, has three basic things to do. One is to be a national development think tank, which I don't think over the years we have done extremely well. The second is to provide a framework, which we are talking about plan or long-term perspective or short-term plans, to provide a framework for the nation's development. And the third is to monitor progress over time. And that covers all sectors. It is not a ministry. It's basically to support the presidency, to undergird our development with some sort of thought. I always say that development is thinking expensive, it requires, and that is what National Development Planning Commission, for me, must do.
Yes. So that's in the broad scope in which my question fits of human resources and in education. I'll come to what specifically you would like to, what your vision is for the area. That's being your background. But some would say that the NDPC as itself has lost its bearing when it comes to the development conversation in the country.
Well, let me say that the NDPC, in a sense, has not lived up to what the Constitution and everybody expects it, but for good reason. In fact, I was quite surprised when my name was mentioned, because probably I am the first non-politician to chair the commission. I mean, there have been people, of course, very, very, very capable. P.V. Obin, Dr. Kwesi Botwe, J.H. Mensah, very highly honored and respectable. But this is the first time an academician is being asked to chair. And the tendency was to look at it with political quarreling. Secondly, the NDPC has suffered what almost like a community goat. It's under the presidency, but it's supposed to be a part of the executive, but nobody almost take care of it. If you go there, it's quite shocking that even space to sit is a challenge. That their latest car was 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and all those, they have been resource constrained. And also, I've found out that even though they are supposed to be an intellectual type of organization, they are almost treated in conditions of service like just civil servants. So that it's almost difficult to attract, as it is now, the top type of people. It should be the equivalent of the university lecturers and professors who should be there thinking for Ghana. But so these are, to my shock, for example, at this moment, there's no substantive Director General. There are 4 directors. All of them are not in place. And we have done some advertisements. So I think that we as a nation have not given the required attention and resources, and then demanded the type of output. And my predecessor, Kwesi Botwe, I think they did a lot of studies which unfortunately have not come to light. One of my first responsibilities to see what we can do with them. There was this 40-year plan they were trying to do. And
which I was coming to, because with the 40-year development plan, it suffered what most Ghanaians have talked about, which is it suffered a change of government. Because even before this current government came to power, members of government said they don't agree with it. Senior Minister Yaosa Fumafo said in his vetting that he doesn't agree with the idea of having a 40-year development plan.
Well, the question is, I must be very careful, but the question is that had they read what they had done before they commented on it? I think that if you look at all countries that have developed in recent past, whether we are talking about Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, and currently China, though of a communist background, they have become more capitalist than. Each one of them had a Malaysia had a long-term perspective guide. I think that the idea of the word plan, which people say that, are you going to tie the hand of successive governments?
Exactly.
I think that is probably a miscommunication. and then also an attempt to try to work out the details of 40 years. How can you, anyway, work out the details of every 40 years? But there's a need of the Ghana we want. The Commission is thinking about taking the work forward. At Ghana at 100, in 38 years, Ghana will be 100 years old. This is the time as a nation we must say, what is the Ghana we want at 100? And how do we get there? For me, that answers the question of the long-term perspective. We need it as a nation. And it should not be constrictive, in other words, so that, this is what NPP want, NDC want. I believe that the Ghana we want in 38 years, there will be very little disagreement among whether the centralist or the rightist government. But then we should break it down because there must be stages. And that's where you must say, for example, our commission just had a retreat, our first retreat, to think, and we are coming to the conclusion that there's a need for the next 8 to 10 years to lay what we call the foundations, the basic infrastructure and other things which are needed for the takeoff. Then there must be, at the next stage, the focus must be transforming the economy. We cannot be hewers of stone and drawers of water. And we must go to a third stage of accelerating our development. By the time we are 38 years or Ghana at 100, we must be a solidly developed country. And our job is to think through with Ghanaians as to how we are going to get there.
But wasn't this done by the Commission in the plan, in the 40-year plan? Because again, you have almost every sector laid out. It was broken down into medium term. So it's actually like a string of different development plans put together. So aren't we repeating the work that has been done?
No, because the same commission, actually, believe it or not, when my name was mentioned, I think the first person I met was Dr. Kosibotri. I've met him 3 times. I've seen Dr. Nimoy Thompson. No, what we are is to pick up where they left off and work with it to come up with probably what I call development communication, to communicate to Ghanaians. For example, I look at the document. It's 450 pages. I'm sure that neither of the NDC or NPP politicians will ever read 450. In fact, apart from a university professor or a student who is doing a PhD, will not look at it. So there's a need of how to bring out the essentials. These are for technocrats. When they are working out the details, he wants to in charge of agriculture and things. But there's a need for a form in which Ghanaians can buy into and identify with and become the driving force. When I joined the UNDP, one of my job was actually to be a team of economists to advise African countries on long-term perspective studies. And that is part of my team actually helped the preparation of the Vision 2020.
Okay.
But I was at the other side, so therefore Ghanaians didn't associate me with. Right. So that was our team. And part of our preparation, we went to the now Asian newly industrialized countries. And I was surprised when I went to Thailand. Even a school child knew where their country would be in 25 years and how they were going to get there. It was a sort of mobilization. I believe that is what a long-term plan should serve. But the details should be for 10 years at most. And then, of course, the various parties can then draw from it their own manifesto. For example, I believe that this nation needs to break once and for all the issues of power, railways, and other things. And when a plan has been done and has been made known to Ghanaians, it's the Ghanaians who demand whether it's MPP or NDC, what are you doing with these guidelines? So far, that has not come out. And that's what we will aim at doing.
So you will not be drawing a new plan?
What Actually, they didn't complete.
They complete the 40-year plan.
Yes, we will take it. No, we are not. Personally, I think that even the name and everything else should be acceptable to both, I call them the two tribes, MPP and NDC. In fact, when we met, the thought that came is that we are coming out with a document called Ghana at 100, a better Ghana beyond 80.
A better Ghana beyond
80.
Okay.
Which would draw on the work they have done. We have seen 1 or 2 supplementary work that has to be done, and hopefully communicate in a way that all Ghanaians can buy into.
Right. Again, it's 25 minutes. The show will be over. Wow. I don't know how the time flies. But this is still the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. And our guest this morning is Professor Stephen Adei. Professor Stephen Adei. I want to... okay. We are talking about the development of the country, and we are dealing with this very much in detail. Pardon me. So Prof. Stephen Adei was talking to us about the plans for the National Development Planning Commission, and we've been trying to look at getting the buy-in, because I was curious to hear you worked on Vision 2020.
My team.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually the chief of the African Bureau of UNDP in New York, and but normally we don't send you to your own country. I was going to Nigeria, Tanzania, but part of our team
worked on Vision 2020,
and they brought a report. We would discuss it over there.
Curious. That if you start from the 7-year development plan that Nkrumah started, the problem has always been implementation.
Yeah,
and the confidence of a politician to actually do it. What is causing this problem, though? And how can we change it?
Well, democracy has its benefits and has got its costs.
Uh-huh.
I think that the 4-year changes has been very unfortunate for us, even under the Fourth Republic. It should have been a bit longer, but that is for another discussion. It's to be the lawyers will say ultra varies. It's beyond us to decide now. I personally think that there is a need, and that is where one of the biggest challenge for the Commission is to come out with guidelines which transcend political divide.
Okay.
Which is such that the average Ghanaian, because I think that in addition to advising the presidency, that's where we should also be the national think tank and put out to the people out there in the country as to what is good for Ghana. And then they would also demand
from
another government, hey, Charlie, for example, these cars which are being there, it's not in public domain. It's not that when we don't have any buses, we are having about altogether about 400 or 500 if we add the gallopies to the current one. Then people will start asking the right questions. Number 2, and this is not a countries apart from this country, India. It has been very, very, very difficult for countries to make quick progress when there's rapid change of government. And I'm hoping that very soon one regime will so distinguish itself that it will get about 12 years before there is a change. And but at the end of the day, I think that when we have a good guidelines, which are called the plans, it will constrain the politicians as to how far wild they can go.
Okay. We'll be wrapping up in a moment, but a few more questions before we go. Your reflections on the performance of the current government. You talked a bit about corruption earlier and how there's been a marginal improvement in our CBI score. In your candid view, how has the government been performing in the fight against corruption?
Well, what I think is that they have put in certain measures which could in future reduce corruption. So far, we know that it hasn't fruited yet. For example, the Special Prosecutor's Office, which I hope very soon is to be coming up with prosecutions, not only of opposition, but of anybody who is found to be corrupt. Sometimes it seems as if the politicians want to make it appear that the Special Prosecutor's Office is to prosecute NDC. It will be there forever, and everybody, when you are caught. Again, I mentioned it. Kierkegaard, who is one of the specialists on corruption, said that there are three things that fuel corruption in the country. One is the opportunity to be corrupt. The second, the likelihood that when you are corrupt, you will be caught. And the third, when you are caught, you will be punished.
Okay.
If these three things are not in sync, you are not going to have a serious dent in corruption. I think that the paperless ports and all that is happening would probably reduce the probability of corruption. And I can see that it's slightly starting to bite. I hear the traders, the importers, saying that, we are paying too much for taxes.
Yes.
It's not true. They are not paying higher tax rate. It means that what they were getting away with, they are not getting away with now. So I can see already in the ports it biting, because before the goods arrive, the tax is already known and other things. So I can.
But they say there's still corruption at the port.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, when it is 41, it seems that corruption in this country is still too high.
Still there.
But what I'm saying is that the using ICT would reduce the level of corruption, prosecuting those who are found corrupt. So we should tackle all these three at the same time. I think that there's an embryonic attempt by this government to do so. But at this moment, the evidence is yet to show.
Okay. Professor Stephen Adei, thank you very much for obliging us this morning. It's 90 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll take your very final words, if you have any, before you go.
Well, what I would say is that as a nation, we have made some progress, and we all pride ourselves of our democracy. But we all agree that some of the fundamental factors are still not strong enough. We are talking about corruption is still too high for our good, and it will not allow us to progress as fast. Secondly, there's a need, and I hope that I've always been saying that where is the Chinese money? Our infrastructure has to be improved.
You're referring to the Sino-Hydro deal?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Unless we really improve basic infrastructure as a country, I mean, when it takes you about 6 hours to cover a trip, 250 kilometers from Accra to Kumasi, and that's our best, let alone when you are going to the hinterland, you have a serious development constraint. I still believe that our human resources situation is not as good as we think. Ghanaians think about, we have the men. We do not have the men. We do not have the basic productivity of the Ghanaian laborer. Worker is among the lowest in the world. And we must tackle the education, vocational education, and the productivity. But in the end, all these things must be fitted into a national plan. And that is what some of us have been tasked to go and start working with it. But all said and done, I'm confident that as a nation, we will make it.
Thank you very much, Prof. Steve Adei, for joining us this morning. Prof. Adei is the chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, and he's an astute professional and educationist. He has been speaking to us on Ghana. He commented on Ayawaso West. He commented on education, talked about their plans at the National Development Planning Commission and government's fight against corruption. We'll take these important messages. When we come back, our friends from Total will join us in studio because it's time for you to learn about the Total Start-Upper competition. I'm telling you, it's a conversation you want to hear.
Ma, I'm going to the bank to deposit some money. I'll be back soon, okay?